Hello and welcome to the People's View. I'm Carl Seidel, a representative from Ward 1, and this show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee. And if you want to find out further information about the committee, go to their website, nashuagop.org. And they'll tell you about the events they're holding, and you'll also be able to catch previous episodes of the People's View. And tonight we're going to be talking to Representative McClarren from Ward 2. Don, welcome.
Ward 2 people. Thank you.
Welcome, Don. And how has it gone over your first year now, your first 2 years, I should say?
Yeah, things that we did up there, I am very, very proud of. I think that people need to understand that when we set about setting the budget and the finances for this state, we first of all set the revenues and said we're not going to spend more than that, and then we developed the spending. We were able to reduce the budget significantly, about 11%, I think, and then maintain it. We had a very, very good estimate that came out. It was really,
I think
really
you
accurate.
hit within $1 million of in your income.
Absolutely. So we had to recover a debt as well in that budget, but we need to approach the budget in the same way. We let the Ways and Means Committee establish the revenue projections, and they do a tremendous job, not only with the departments, but with agencies and groups that study those issues and bring them in. And then the Finance Committee is meeting to set the expenditures that the state is going to make. One of the goals, I believe, that will come forth is we want to reduce those expenditures and try to get it down to just $10 billion for the state.
That's a 2-year budget.
That's
so
a 2-year budget,
million.
yes. And it's a general fund budget
Right.
that is established. There's other things that I think that were accomplished up there that were, I guess I'll call them, the citizens may have some trouble thinking about that it's being prosperous for them, but we changed the retirement system into a contributing system, and that means that it's going to exist for these teachers that are going to retire in the future. And I'm hoping that they can come to understand that it was a good thing, because that retirement system was in trouble.
Oh, it was completely underfunded, and it still is. We still have to worry about that going on, but at least we've made the first step in changing the effectiveness, and so that it would be able to be funded properly for the people that are going to retire in 20 years.
Yeah. So that's another area that we need to maintain continuity. In the education reform, we didn't quite get accomplished what we have before us, but we need to get more legislature so that on education, so that the legislature can control the financing of education, and so that if they don't have money, they may have to pull back on the schools. The schools may have to do something, but you just can't have an open system that says, okay, here's a whole program, state, you put your dollars up. We can't have that.
There wasn't a constitutional amendment, but it didn't pass the legislature. We're going to probably, you're not on that committee, though. You're on another committee.
No, I'm on.
What happened to you? What committee are you on, and what were you doing? What did you accomplish in that committee?
I was on the judiciary, and I'm trying to think of all try to prioritize some of these. The one that I was very, very interested in was medical tort reform. And we passed that with what is called an early offer in the tort reform bill. We had the not circuit court, Superior Court remained in Nashua.
Right.
So we had a bill come in that wanted to move it up to Manchester from Nashua, but we were able to overcome and defeat that bill so that it stayed in Nashua, and again, identifying and continuing those things that happen here to make Nashua prosperous,
Right.
and benefit from those court decisions.
Well, there'll be superior courts both in Nashua and Manchester,
Yeah.
the two largest cities in the state, and that's only
Yeah, we're not eliminating
logical.
them.
Yeah.
We're not eliminating them. I'm trying to think of what the laws that protect citizens. There were like some housing laws. There were some women's rights with abortion.
Mm-hmm.
There were.
You were a very busy committee.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
from my understanding of all the bills you ran.
I'm trying to remember how many we had, but we met. Of course, Wednesdays are the session days, but Tuesday and Thursday we met from January till the end of May.
Yeah.
Almost every week, a full week. But the other things that the citizens really ought to be aware, because they're going to come before them, are the constitutional amendments
Mm-hmm.
that are coming forth on the ballot. We have kept to our pledge of no new taxes, no sales tax, no income tax. We have a constitutional amendment that says that any kinds of increases in taxes have to have a 3/5 vote of approval.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, it has to have the support and compromise that is necessary and vital to this state, so that the arguments can be made, so that when it becomes necessary to increase taxes, that everyone understands why that is and
Mm-hmm.
understands why they have to pay more
And the
taxes.
effect, the pros and cons
and the
of that.
effect of it, yes.
And I think that's a good way of approaching it. You'll have a full explanation of that,
Yes.
and people will have a chance to vote on that. And you also have that constitutional amendment that there's no income tax.
Right, right, right. That's a very important one, I think, for the people. They need to know that their income is protected for them to do the things that they need to do for their system, that they're not doling out dollars to the state to do things, but they'll have what they earn to do for their family and for themselves. Very, very important. The other one is CR 26, which was in the court system and which came through the judiciary, and that was to change what we deemed in the committee as being confusion with the court system. There's a statement in the Constitution that says that the rules are to be considered law. I think is what it says.
Mm-hmm.
And we changed that and are trying to take it out through this amendment, so that it is clear that the legislature makes the laws and the judiciary branch judges the law or conducts the court system. So that's what we've.
So you separated that out, that made it clear that it's the legislature's authority to make the laws. The judicial authority rules are not law.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And there's there will be guides in the voting booth for you to read, to explain this a little bit more to you. But also watch your newspaper. I'm sure the newspapers will.
I'm sure that they will do it, and we'll probably have a session on that before voting in November. We'll have a session on the People's View. There's just 3 amendments on the ballot?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
I think we tried to keep it that way
Yeah.
so that it's not too many things out there confusing people.
Yeah, there were some other ones that were considered. I'm trying to remember now exactly what they were, but what we did not want to do was to inundate the voters with many, many amendments and cause confusion or questions like, what am I talking about here, and what do I need to understand here? So trying to keep it simple. 3 is plenty.
Yeah, definitely. Well, coming up, I think we've done a lot in this last session. I think we want to continue our program in coming up in this year. And one of the big elements, as I understand it, is making the state a little bit more receptive for new industry and growing industries. Are you doing anything involved with that?
Not right now, other than the Business Coalition is a group of people that meet, and I'm a member of that. So I go in and mostly listen to things so that I can keep abreast with it. There's some people that are meeting to put together some bills, I'm sure, but I'm not involved directly with that. But the business interest in this state is a very, very high priority in in our coalition.
Yeah. This coalition is bipartisan, right? I mean, the Democrats and Republicans
Yes.
involved, so we're getting input from all sides. The main thing is to make this more business friendly.
Absolutely. Through tax reduction, we had a business enterprise tax that increased the threshold level for the taxes, so it's going to help them. There were like, I think, over 80 business regulations that were modified.
There's a lot of them that were
Changed.
done, and there's still more to be done. I'm on this commission for rules and regulations, and we're coming up with several that we need to have changed, and I'm sure there's other people that have changes.
So there's a lot of attention. We'll see. You know, you sit down with people and start talking about it. You always get a different opinion bounce back to you of what the #1 issue is. Don't worry about taxes. They know they have to pay taxes. Well, no, I don't. I think they don't want. They want more money to operate their business, but they want to operate it in a business climate.
Right.
And we have to understand what that business climate means to business people and make sure that we get it established.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a number of small companies that are hindered when they want to grow because they have too many rules and regulations to go through.
Yeah.
And sometimes the agencies, I don't think, realize what an impediment they're putting in front of these people when they're growing. You know, I mean, they're not a company that has a bunch of lawyers to watch out for them. No, they're all focused on selling a product, a service to the people, and they want to be able to do that as effectively as possible.
You know, they don't know what all the regulations are when they go into business. They don't. They open the door and they start doing what they want to do as business, and then all of a sudden someone's down their neck saying, hey, you didn't do this, and we're going to fine you to do this and that and the other thing. And
Right.
that's just not friendly.
Well, you know, one thing I think we did accomplish, and I don't think we had to go through legislation, but now the Department of Labor has a CD that the Secretary of State gives to every new business when they register in the state. Once they register, they get a how-to CD, if you will. This is what you have to do. These are the laws that you're going to have to look out for. So that's a big start, because now the people don't have to go wandering around and trying to figure out which department I have to go to figure out whether they affect my way of work or not.
One of the other things that I want to bring up to everybody is we have voter ID.
Mm-hmm.
If you came to the primaries, you got a dry run of that in terms of what's required and so forth. It's as simple as when you go to cash a check. You got to flash your driver's license and say, this is who I am.
Or some form of identification.
Yes.
And
There's 3 forms or 4? I'm trying to remember
no,
what
there's,
they are.
well, it's going to be reduced as you go into next year.
Oh, okay.
This year, I think there's as many as 6 different forms that you can have. And next year, it'll be down to about 3.
Okay.
You know, they won't take student IDs, for example,
Yep.
next year. But one thing I don't think is clear to anybody, people who either forget or don't have one for whatever reason can still sign that affidavit swearing that they're the person represented on the voting polls under penalty of a felony if they're not. That's always the last resort. So even if they forget, they can still vote.
Yes. So I think that it's what do they call flack from the guns on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're trying to fly over it and get over it. But I think I guess the funniest thing about it for me, and it's funny, it really is, to say there's no voter fraud. Well, really, let's just see if someone wants to come in and present a false ID, and we'll see whether there's voter fraud or not. So,
well, it sounds like you got a lot ahead of you for this. Hopefully, you'll get through the election and get voted in again, and you got a program that will help the state.
Yeah, I got a campaign together, and hoping that the people will see it, hear it, listen to it, and re-elect me as their representative at the General Court.
And you have an email address if anybody wants to send you a question?
Yes, and you can find my information out on the General Court website, but my email address is just dmcclarren at msn.com.
Okay.
So, one other thing I wanted to tell you. We've had in our ward, we've had several people come to us to ask for help, and normally, and I'm not advertising it right now, but all I'm telling you is that if you need some help, give us a call, look it up, and ask myself or the other 2 reps, Michael McCarty and Michael Balboni, if they will help, because they have, and I have, and we will.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, and good luck on that. And thank you for listening to The People's View, run by the Nashua City Republican Committee. Thank you, and good night.